I'm Tyler Wonke, an MD, MBA candidate at Northwestern University, and we are Innoblative, innovating the treatment of breast cancer. 1 in 8 women in this room will get breast cancer at some point in her life. It's the most common cause of cancer in women. In fact, about 250,000 women will get breast cancer this year alone in the United States, and globally, that number's over 1.6 million patients. That's growing at 1 to 3% every single year. If diagnosed early, which is most patients, she has a few options. Unfortunately, they're not great options. She can get a mastectomy or what's called breast conservation therapy. A mastectomy is removal of the entire breast, and while this is effective, it's a bit overkill for early-stage patients, leaving a terrible cosmesis, and furthermore, decades of research has shown that in terms of mortality, this is no better than breast conservation therapy. BCT is the combination of a lumpectomy, removal of just the tumor, but in order to get at any of those residual cancer cells left after surgery, you gotta pair it with something, and that's usually radiation therapy. And this combination has been shown to be just as effective as mastectomy, but there are a few major problems with each step. First, after a lumpectomy, 1 in 5 women need a reoperation due to residual cancer found in the tissue after surgery. Specifically, a pathologist takes the tissue that's taken during surgery and they analyze it under the microscope, and if the tumor is close to or touching the edge of the cavity, they do a reoperation. And that reoperation costs just as much as the first. It takes away more tissue, if not the entire breast, and even then, that patient may need radiation. Radiation itself has its own slew of problems. Namely, it's lengthy. That poor woman must return every single day for therapy for 5 to 7 weeks. And women who can't afford this or live in rural areas are generally forced to get a mastectomy. It's also costly, about 3 to 4 times the cost of surgery itself. And women who can't afford this are generally forced to get mastectomy. And lastly, it's dangerous. Ionizing radiation for breast cancer treatment is equivalent of getting about 50,000 chest x-rays. And this leads to short-term side effects like burns and fibrosis of the breast, but we're just finding out recently about the long-term side effects, including heart attack 30 years out. Other than this, pregnant women, women with heart conditions or lupus, are contraindicated and generally forced to get a mastectomy as well. Now, all these things considered, it's no wonder that nearly 30% of patients don't even finish the radiation therapy that's supposed to be getting them better. Now, when I started working on this project, my good friend's mom, Jeannie, opened up to me about her personal battle with breast cancer. She was an early-stage patient. She got the lumpectomy, she got the radiation therapy, but then she suffered weeks of complications, including the burns and fibrosis I talked about earlier. And then, a few years later, she recurred with cancer. And because she had already had a round of radiation, she was not a candidate for breast conservation therapy. That's why we came together and formed Innoblative. And we designed a novel medical device that fits the cavity made after surgery to deliver a safe radiofrequency energy to kill residual cancer in minutes instead of weeks, for a fraction of the cost, and without the use of any dangerous ionizing radiation. Here's a video of how it works. The surgeon goes in, just like she always would, and performs her lumpectomy procedure, taking out the mass. But then, instead of closing up the patient and sending them to radiation, she inserts our probe. Our probe fits the cavity, and the electrodes come into contact and are activated to deliver a precise dose of radiofrequency energy to ablate the 1 centimeter cavity around that area. The patient's done, she's closed, and hopefully without the need for any reoperation, and hopefully without the need for any radiation therapy. Now, as I mentioned, radiofrequency ablation is what our device uses. It's a safe, controlled heating via alternating current. And this has been used in cancer and non-cancerous settings for a few years. Particularly the last few years, it's become the standard of care for liver cancer. Dr. David Mavi is co-inventor of our technology, and on our team, he's the chief of surgical oncology at Northwestern, and he's been researching radiofrequency ablation for liver cancer for decades. It was with his confidence in the modality that we decided to translate this successful technology into the breast. In fact, there's even been a clinical trial taking place that's paving the way for us. I mentioned liver cancer. There is a liver ablation probe that's been used experimentally in the breast, and the results are promising. It's been able to knock down the reoperation rate I told you about earlier by up to 91%. And the 9-year recurrence of cancer is only 1.7%, right in line with mastectomy and breast conservation therapy. The only problem is it's using liver probes. And these liver probes are super long, and you can see right there a surgeon sort of struggling to even fit it into the superficial breast. And furthermore, they don't even fit a cavity. They're made for solid liver tumors. So the surgeons have to place all these subjective sutures just to make pretend a cavity is a solid tumor. And these have led to an adoption problem. An angiodynamics rep of this company told me that himself. Our device is much shorter, ergonomic for the surgeon to use, and we have intellectual property supporting the expansion of our device within the cavity, ensuring that you get all walls and treat the cancer. Again, you can see that when the liver probes go into the cavity, they don't fit correctly. And so surgeons need to do all these workarounds, and they haven't adopted it for that reason. They don't want to miss the cancer. That's the very reason they're treating the patient. Our probe goes within and expands to make sure all walls are in contact and treated. In terms of our competitive environment, we've started talking about surgeons about what do they think about our local non-ionizing approach. And so far, in the operating room, they've been really enthusiastic. Surgeons have already said that they'll use this as soon as it gets to market, including the chief of surgery at Northwestern. And why wouldn't they? I mean, our go-to-market system is so simple. We use a single-use probe, a disposable probe that plugs into a reusable generator that's in all these hospitals that the surgeons already know about. And we monetize that by using our in-house sales managers and a contracted sales force to sell these $1,500 probes to surgeons and their hospitals. Hospitals that have already said that this value proposition is a slam dunk, mostly because of its cost savings. Furthermore, it's scalable. Tomorrow alone, there would be 130,000 patients who would be eligible for this in the United States, and at a probe price of $1,000 in the beginning and eventually $3,000 per probe, that's a $130 to $390 million market just in the United States. Globally, the breast cancer market for early stage is approaching $2 billion, and we even have identified opportunities for future revenue, including developing our own proprietary generator and selling that, developing new advanced ablation modalities for our probe and monetizing those, and lastly, investigating other areas of the body where we can get intellectual property for our device. Here's our 10-year revenue forecast right here. We've projected out that we can treat about 50,000 patients within the first 6 years and break even right around there as well. And it's no surprise. I mean, analogous companies have done this before, about 45,000, 50,000 patients in the first 6 years. And it makes sense because surgeons are getting the opportunity to use this device and take more control of their patients and generate revenue. Revenue they were previously outsourcing to radiation oncologists. We don't even have to go all that way. We have multiple early opportunities for exit. And we've already spoken with Abbott, Cook, and a few other medical companies about what it might take to get to an exit with them. I've told you a little bit about the opportunity at hand. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jason to tell you about what we're doing to capitalize on it.
Thank you, Tyler. Today, we have a diverse team of Northwestern surgeons and graduate students dedicated to making this device a reality. You just heard from Tyler, an MD, MBA student who took leave from medical school to build this company. I'm a JD MBA student with 3 years of management consulting experience in the health and innovation space. And you're about to hear from Curtis and Brian. Curtis is a PhD student in electrical engineering, and Brian has a master's in biomedical engineering. Not only has this team been working full speed since we came together about a year ago, but also we work hand in hand with a high-powered team of expert advisors, including the busiest breast cancer surgeon at Northwestern University and 2 former executives from the large liver ablation companies that we mentioned earlier. In other words, the devices that are now in the market that will compete when we enter the market were created by people who are now helping our team do the same thing because they've gotten acquired for about $220 million. Our IP allows us to compete in this space. We filed patents both domestically and internationally, both method and utility applications, covering a range of innovations, including both a fixed probe with differentially expandable electrodes to fit the intricate different cavity shapes we will have to in the breast area, and also a balloon structure that can expand and fit that irregular cavity in a different way. And we're continuing to innovate and build our IP platform. To give you an example of our innovation, here what you'll see is a comparison. The probe in the market, the only ablation probe that has currently been used in breast clinical studies, has IP backing it that only allows them to defend an elongated tube for penetrating deep into the body and a fixed electrode structure that can never change to map the differences between each woman patient. However, our IP and our device allows us to change, to adapt the probe and the electrode shape to fit each woman, each patient individually, which is necessary, and we give the surgeon much more control in a close environment. And now, Curtis will tell you about our tech development and how we're making that device a reality in the lab.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, I'm Curtis, and and my PhD work is actually in tissue ablation. Following the recommendations from the FDA, our technology development for commercialization is based on a three-phase approach. Our first phase covers proof of concept work. Our second phase covers in vivo animal trials, and our third phase covers first-in-woman and regulatory approval. I'm proud to announce that we've already completed our first phase. We've studied the computational model, as shown behind me, where we took our theoretical design, optimized it, and placed it in this virtual cavity that has the same characteristics as human breast tissue, and we've proven that it ablates this virtual cavity. This was then translated into a computer-aided design model for rapid prototyping.
So we've taken this design and using 3D printing technology, we've created a functional prototype. We've taken our prototype and put it in the hands of breast surgeons, but more importantly, we've taken this prototype and we've tested it on our benchtop model. We've repeatedly used our human tissue analog to demonstrate the feasibility of our device. In our benchtop model, you can see here, with our human tissue analog, we've repeatedly used to demonstrate the feasibility of our device. Specifically with this human tissue analog, how it works is it changes temperature when our device heats it up to the temperature necessary to kill residual cancer cells. As our lead engineer, I'm excited to transition into phase 2 of our technology development. We're looking right now for a $1.45 million seed round, so we can place a design freeze on our device, which will allow us to validate and verify it. We will then move soon into in vivo animal testing. Looking ahead at phase 3, we're excited to do our first in-woman testing. We'll move ahead with our regulatory submission and approval as we prepare for a post-market analysis and look to raise some more funding at that point. Now, if we go ahead and look a little more in depth at our regulatory pathway, we've already spoken with a director at the FDA who agrees that the appropriate pathway for us to pursue is to submit as a 510K Class 2 device. Abroad, we'll have what is called a CE mark, but here specifically in the United States will be product code GEI with the specific indication of soft tissue ablation. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Tyler, and he's going to tell you a little bit about our reimbursement strategy.
Now, we've already talked to payers about this who have indicated that this is something that they'll pay for, mostly because it's a huge cost saver. Now, that price up above is what hospitals like Northwestern actually pay for the liver probes that we showed you earlier. And looking at the currently existing reimbursement codes for breast procedures, we think we can garner a very similar reimbursement at first and then eventually get our own specific codes. In terms of financing, as mentioned, we're looking for $1.45 million to reach that preclinical milestone and increase valuation of the company before raising a Series A in phase 3. So far, we've raised $55,000 of non-dilutive capital in the business plan circuit and similar arenas. And we're hoping to finish this out by the end of the summer before applying for that SBIR grant and closing up our first round of investment. And this project's been garnering a significant amount of hype, and people are getting really excited about it. And why wouldn't they? We're taking a novel medical device with the associated intellectual property and offering that and access to all these interesting markets that we've discussed. All that for a $1.45 million seed round, an option to follow on in the future rounds. And besides making a decent return on your investment, you're helping women like Jeannie and the other millions of women battle breast cancer. We are Innoblative, and we are innovating the treatment of breast cancer. Thank you.